There's a real sense of tension building around Ibrox right now, and it's the kind that doesn't just come from results on the pitch, but from the stories unfolding behind the scenes. One situation in particular has grabbed the attention of supporters, and it centers on a player who only recently arrived with expectations of making an impact. Cornelius came in during the summer with the hope that he could add depth and quality to the squad, but things have taken a turn that not many could have predicted. Instead of pushing for a place in the starting 11, he now finds himself working away from the main group, trying to rebuild not only his fitness, but also his standing within the club. It's important to understand that this hasn't been a straightforward fall from grace. Cornelius has been dealing with a significant muscle injury that kept him out of action for months, and anyone who has followed football long enough knows how difficult that road back can be. Match sharpness, confidence, rhythm, all of it takes time. His last appearance came in a friendly back in November, and since then it's been a long process of recovery. But what has surprised many is not just the injury layoff, but what has happened since he returned to fitness. Reports began to circulate that he was no longer training with the first team, and that alone raised eyebrows among the support. Now, with confirmation coming from the Canadian national team setup, it's clear that those reports weren't wide of the mark. Cornelius has been working with the academy group, effectively removed from the senior squad environment. That's a big step for any player, especially one who is in his late 20s and expected to compete at the highest level available to him at the club. It naturally leads to questions about what exactly has gone on behind closed doors, and whether this is purely a footballing decision or something deeper tied to relationships and communication within the club. From what has been said publicly, there seems to have been a breakdown in understanding between the player and the coaching staff. These situations are never simple, and they rarely come down to one single moment. Instead, it's usually a combination of factors that slowly build over time. In this case, attempts were made to bridge that gap, with outside voices trying to help both sides find common ground. But even with those efforts, things didn't quite fall into place the way everyone had hoped. Miscommunication can be costly in football, and when it happens at this level, it often leads to exactly the kind of scenario we're seeing now. Despite all of that, there's still a feeling that this story isn't finished. Cornelius is said to be fully focused on getting himself back to the level required, not just for his club, but also with international duty in mind. That tells you a lot about his mentality, because it would be easy for a player in his position to become frustrated or lose direction. Instead, he seems determined to keep working, whether that's with the academy lads or eventually back alongside the first team. And in football, situations can change quickly. One injury, one suspension, or even a shift in form elsewhere in the squad can open the door again. At the same time, the manager has a squad he trusts, and that trust is hard-earned. If he feels confident in the players currently ahead in the pecking order, then breaking back into that group becomes even more challenging. It's not just about being fit, it's about proving, day after day in training, that you deserve that opportunity. For Cornelius, that means every session counts, even if it's not under the same spotlight as the senior side. The pathway back is there, but it's narrow, and it requires consistency, patience, and a bit of resilience. While that situation continues to develop, there's another storyline unfolding that paints a very different picture when it comes to the club's direction. One of the younger talents in the squad has been attracting attention from abroad, and it says a lot about the work being done behind the scenes in terms of recruitment and development. The winger has grown into a player of real importance, showing flashes of quality and a willingness to take on responsibility in big moments. Performances over the course of the season have not gone unnoticed, and naturally, that brings interest from clubs looking to strengthen their own squads. What stands out here, though, is the position the club finds itself in. With a long-term contract in place, there's no urgency to make a decision. That's a powerful place to be in modern football, where too often clubs are forced into selling earlier than they would like due to contractual pressure. Here, it's the opposite. Any potential suitor knows that if they want to take things further, they'll have to meet a valuation that truly reflects both current performance and future potential. That level of control allows the club to plan properly, rather than reacting to circumstances. Interest from abroad is always flattering for a player, but it can also be disruptive if not handled correctly. In this case, there have been no signs of unrest, which is another positive. The player appears settled, focused on his development and committed to contributing to the team's objectives. That kind of attitude makes a difference, especially in a dressing room where unity can be the difference between competing and falling short. It also strengthens the club's hand even further because there's no pressure coming from within to force a move. Looking at the broader picture, it creates an interesting contrast between two very different situations. On one side, you have a player trying to fight his way back into contention after injury and a complicated spell away from the first-team environment. On the other, a young talent whose stock is rising, attracting attention while remaining firmly under the club's control. Both stories highlight the unpredictable nature of football, where circumstances can shift quickly and where careers can take unexpected turns depending on form, fitness, and opportunity. And when you take a step back and really look at how these two situations are unfolding at the same time, it gives you a deeper insight into how the club is being managed behind the scenes. There's a clear emphasis on structure, on maintaining control, and on making decisions that serve the long-term vision rather than reacting emotionally to short-term pressure. That approach can be frustrating for supporters who want immediate answers, especially when it comes to a player being left out of the first-team picture, but it also shows a level of discipline that is often required to sustain success over a full season and beyond. With Cornelius, the big question now is whether there is a realistic pathway back into the senior squad, or if this situation is quietly edging towards an exit in the next transfer window. Being on loan adds another layer of complexity, because there are multiple parties involved, all with their own interests and expectations. The club he belongs to will be monitoring his progress closely. The national team clearly still values him, and Rangers themselves must decide whether reintegrating him is worth the effort or if their focus lies elsewhere. These kinds of decisions are rarely made overnight, and more often than not, they evolve over weeks of training, conversations, and internal evaluation. At the same time, you can't ignore the human side of it. Footballers are not just assets or squad numbers. They are individuals dealing with pressure, setbacks, and the constant demand to perform. For Cornelius, going from a summer arrival with expectations to training away from the main group is a significant mental challenge. How he responds to that could define the next phase of his career. Some players use these moments as fuel, pushing themselves harder to prove a point, while others struggle to regain their footing. Everything we're hearing suggests he's staying professional, staying focused, and that alone keeps the door slightly open. Meanwhile, the situation surrounding the young winger continues to build momentum in a very different way. Clubs across Europe are always on the lookout for players who combine potential with tangible output, and that's exactly the profile being developed here. 8 goals and 4 assists across a demanding campaign might not seem extraordinary at first glance, but when you factor in his age, adaptation period, and the intensity of playing at a club like Rangers, it becomes far more impressive. It shows growth, consistency, and the ability to contribute even while still learning the game at this level. What makes it even more intriguing is how the club can approach the summer window with genuine flexibility. If no offer meets their expectations, they keep a player who is improving and could take another leap forward next season. If a significant bid does come in, they have the option to negotiate from a position of strength, potentially bringing in funds that can be reinvested across the squad. That balance between sporting ambition and financial awareness is crucial, especially in a league where maintaining competitiveness requires smart decision-making at every level. There's also a broader message being sent here about how the club values development. Holding on to a young player despite strong interest signals confidence in the environment they've created. It tells other emerging talents that this is a place where you can grow, where you won't be pushed out at the first sign of external attention, and where your progression is taken seriously. That kind of reputation can be just as valuable as any transfer fee because it shapes the type of players who are willing to commit their future to the club. As for the dressing room dynamic, situations like these can have subtle effects that aren't always visible from the outside. A player working separately from the first team inevitably raises questions among teammates, while another attracting interest from abroad can shift expectations and attention. Managing those dynamics is part of the job for the coaching staff, ensuring that focus remains on performances and results rather than distractions. So far, there's no indication of disruption, which suggests that internally, things are being handled with a steady hand. The coming weeks will be telling for both stories. For Cornelius, every training session represents an opportunity to change perceptions, to show that he still has something to offer at this level. For the young winger, it's about continuing his upward trajectory, proving that the interest is justified and that he can deliver consistently when it matters most. Football rarely stands still, and what feels like a settled situation today can shift rapidly with a few key performances or developments behind the scenes. What's certain is that supporters will be watching closely, trying to read between the lines of every update, every team selection, and every rumor that surfaces. At a club with expectations as high as this, every decision is scrutinized, every player's situation analyzed in detail. And in moments like this, where contrasting paths are unfolding at the same time, it only adds to the sense of intrigue surrounding what comes next for Rangers as they continue to navigate a season full of pressure, ambition, and constant change. There is also the question of timing, which in football can be just as important as ability. For Cornelius, returning to full fitness at a moment when the squad has found a certain rhythm makes his task even more difficult. Managers tend to stick with what's working, especially during crucial stages of the season, and breaking into that flow requires something extra. It's not just about being ready. It's about being undeniable in training, forcing a decision rather than waiting for an opportunity to appear. That's a demanding position for any player, but it can also be the spark that reignites a career if handled the right way. On the other side, the winger's situation is starting to attract a different kind of spotlight, one that brings expectation along with admiration. When clubs from outside start circling, every performance is analyzed a bit more closely, every contribution weighed against the growing hype. That can be a challenge in itself, especially for a young player still finding consistency. The next step in his development isn't just about numbers, it's about influence, about stepping into games and making the difference when the team needs it most. That's the level where promising talent turns into a key figure. From a tactical perspective, these situations also reflect how the squad is evolving. The manager clearly has a vision of how he wants the team to function, and that vision dictates who fits and who struggles to find a place. For some, it creates opportunity. For others, it creates obstacles. Cornelius may simply be on the wrong side of that balance at this moment in time, while the winger is benefiting from a system that suits his strengths. Football can be that ruthless, where the same environment that lifts one player can leave another searching for answers. All of this builds towards a summer that could be more defining than it first appears. Decisions made in the coming months won't just affect individual players, but the direction of the squad as a whole. Whether it's reintegration, departure, or continued development, each outcome carries its own consequences. And as the club weighs those options, the stories unfolding now will play a major role in shaping what comes next, both on the pitch and behind the scenes. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. A whisper has begun to gather pace around Ibrox, the kind of murmur that drifts through the stands before it ever reaches the back pages. Rangers, it is said, may be on the brink of securing a new goalkeeper, one arriving quietly, without a transfer fee, yet carrying a story that stretches far beyond Scotland. The player in question is believed to be coming from America, a free agent whose situation has opened the door to what could prove a shrewd piece of business. There's a certain intrigue about a signing like this. No grand unveiling, no drawn-out negotiations splashed across headlines. Just a name circulating, growing louder by the hour. Those close to the club hint that recruitment staff have been tracking him for some time, impressed not only by his shot-stopping ability, but by his composure under pressure. In a league where the margins are fine and the scrutiny relentless, that kind of temperament is prized. Supporters, naturally, are split between curiosity and cautious optimism. A goalkeeper arriving from across the Atlantic always raises questions about adaptation, different tempo, different expectations, and, perhaps most of all, the weight of wearing the jersey at Ibrox. Yet there is also a sense that Rangers have uncovered something others may have overlooked, a player eager to prove himself on a bigger stage. Inside the club, the move is being framed, quietly, as an opportunity rather than a gamble. With no transfer fee involved, The risk appears minimal, but the potential upside is considerable. Should the rumors prove true, Rangers may well have added depth and competition in a position where consistency is everything. For now, nothing is confirmed, and the club remains tight-lipped. But in Glasgow, such stories rarely emerge without reason. And if this one gathers any more momentum, it may not be long before speculation turns into something far more tangible. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.